For those of you saying that you can't hear anything, we haven't started yet. We'll start exactly at 2:30 to give everybody time to sign on. Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me? So welcome to our fourth Global Human Trafficking Summit. We thank you for joining us. I'm Delary Rice, the Senior Director of Special Projects in First Lady Donna Edwards' office. I have put my contact information in the chat box, as well as Kayla McCullum, who is First Lady Donna Edwards' office manager, and then Dana Hunter and Andrea Sparks also have their contact information in the chat box if you'd like to retrieve it and keep it for later. So we have over 600 people who are registered for this, and see people are slowly logging on. We've got about 250 on right now. And so I think people will be logging in as we go. While we're waiting for everybody to get logged in, I'd like to go over a few points for housekeeping, although many of us are probably Zoom experts at this point. So first of all, please make sure you're muted when you're not speaking. Only the panelists will show on the viewing screen, and the participants are not visible and cannot speak, but can use the chat box. So the chat box is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can chat with an individual, just the panelists, or everyone. Just use the drop-down box to choose who. And then we also have added a PDF of the agenda into the chat box that you can download. And it has the times that everyone will be speaking. We are also going to run a slideshow in conjunction with the program. If you want to view the screens in equal proportion, you can put your cursor between both of the pictures on the screen and hover over those two lines and slide it back and forth accordingly. We ask that you please add any questions you may have into the chat box, and we will answer them at the end if possible. We usually don't have time left, and if we run out of time, we will make sure someone emails you with the answer. Reminder to our panelists to try to stick to your time so we can get everybody off the Zoom by 4 p.m. And at this time, I would like to introduce to you First Lady Donna Edwards, and she will start our summit.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 4th Virtual Human Trafficking Prevention and Awareness Summit. My name is Donna Edwards. I'm the wife of Governor John Bel Edwards and First Lady of the state of Louisiana. And I'm so honored and proud to be with you all this afternoon and want to welcome any of our new participants and thank our repeat attendees. I'm so very grateful for your commitment to be here and for the work that you all do to fight human sex trafficking. So there are over 600 participants online from 30 different states, the territory of Guam, and Australia online with us today. Now people are coming in, and we're thankful. But just know that this will also be able to be viewed later on. I'd also like to thank the First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott, for continuing to engage in this endeavor, and Andrea Sparks, the director of the Governor Abbott's sex trafficking team. We're so honored to have formed such a great and strong partnership to address human sex trafficking between our states. And before I begin, I want to announce another initiative that developed from these summits. And I'm so excited to announce the formation of the National Coalition of Human Sex Trafficking. It's an initiative supported by First Spouses in the U.S., First Lady Abbott of Texas, First Lady Ellie Reeves of Mississippi have joined our advisory board. And we have some pending invitations to other First Spouses and hope to have many more join us. This group was formed to raise awareness and support prevention efforts for human sex trafficking. So we're going to host the first event on April the 3rd during the NCAA Final Four held in New Orleans on Sunday, April 3rd, 2022. There will be a press conference and an event that day. So we welcome all of you to attend, and we'll send out some information about the event and details after this summit. You can also contact Delary Rice or Kayla McCullum, and we'll have information on our website, which should be posted in the chat. So the focus of today's summit is to continue to unite us all in a national and global effort to end human sex trafficking. This afternoon, you will hear these from experts that work tirelessly in this field to combat this issue. Hopefully, we can connect and form a coalition across the nation that will strengthen our commitments and offer an opportunity to collaborate about best practices. You know, I'm a big believer in the saying, don't reinvent the wheel. So let's share with each other our best practices in our communities, states, and countries to eradicate human sex trafficking. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge and thank all of the First Spouses who are attendees this afternoon. I know that each of you have busy schedules, and I'm grateful for you've taken time to join us and hearing more about human sex trafficking and learning even more. This summit gives us this opportunity as First Spouses, along with other leaders in the field, to leverage our roles as leaders to make a difference. Additionally, I'd like to acknowledge that every international, national, state, and local leader present with us today, as well as all other summit participants. Thanks to all of you for your leadership and the role that you all play in addressing and preventing human sex trafficking. Each speaker will only be able to share just a limited amount of information with you due to time constraints. But please look for additional resources and a recording of this event, which will be sent to you by email in a week or so. We also post the recordings and resources on our website, louisianafirstfoundation.com. Also, since our last summit, I am proud to announce that my husband signed into law this year a bill that created the Governor's Office of Human Sex Trafficking Prevention. This new office is Louisiana's first government entity that is solely dedicated to addressing human sex trafficking. Dr. Dana Hunter was appointed as the director of this newly formed department, and you'll hear from Dr. Hunter soon. Now I'm going to hand over today's summit to our director, Delary Rice. And I just want to thank Delary for bringing everything together today, along with all the behind the scenes work that you do, along with our team, our little team and just want to thank everybody who made today come to be. Thank you so much. Delary?
Thank you. And I am here to introduce Andrea Sparks, who will start our summit. She is the moderator and will be addressing, the summit will mostly address online exploitation. Andrea is the director of the Governor Abbott's Child Sex Trafficking Team. The team leads collaborative efforts to build sustainable capacity, enhance expertise, and promote policies to prevent child sexual exploitation, to help survivors heal and thrive, and to bring exploiters to justice. Since Andrea's appointment by the governor 4 years ago, Texas has become a national leader in developing trauma-informed coordinated care and services for child and young adult victims. In addition to building a continuum of survivor care in Texas, Andrea leads the team's efforts to prevent exploitation and to support the criminal justice system in holding exploiters accountable. After graduating from the University of Texas School of Law and serving as a staff attorney at the Texas Supreme Court, Andrea represented children and families in child protection cases. She then served as the Director of Public Affairs for Texas CASA and Executive Director of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's Texas Regional Office. We are so happy we have partnered with Andrea in Texas, and I will hand it over to her now.
Great. Can y'all hear me? My Zoom is going like this, unfortunately, but before before I get started, I really want to turn it over to my good friend, Rabbi Neal Blumoth, who is not only a rabbi here in Austin and a distinguished jazz musician, but also a member of the governor's response against child exploitation here in Texas and a fellow Tulanian with me. We graduated together at Tulane. So he's got Texas, Louisiana roots, and I thought he'd be appropriate to give us a blessing.
Thanks, Andrea. I appreciate that. And good afternoon, everyone. And let us pray. Source of all life, we are in gratitude for the miracle of gathering across time and space, for this important moment of discernment, sharing, and possibility in this First Spouses Summit regarding global human trafficking. We pray for the good and sustained health of our First Ladies and of all assembled and all whose hearts are carried in these issues today. We recognize the power of technology to uplift and strengthen our bonds and our friendships across our two great states and across this country. And we thank you, God, for your grace. We know too that technology can be used shamefully to prey upon and exploit those looking for connection and exploring wonder. As adults, we are to protect our children, shielding them from harm's way. We are to build a healthy world for them, giving those most impressionable the legacy of what is sublime, holy, and transcendent. God, may we not manipulate others for our advantage. Help us. May we realize how we are enmeshed in our public and private lives, and may we know the magnitude of our actions, comments, and clicks. May we use the instruments of law, legislation, and policy, of pulpits and media platforms to raise the bar on what is possible. May we see what is possible when we access the better angels of our nature to elevate and inspire. May our children grow to be confident in their identities and inhabit their fullest power. May our children prosper in the modeling that we offer, Master of Mercy. Enable us to walk inside our homes and online with a heart of integrity. As our holy texts teach, bless the works of our hands and lift all of us up in value. Place a hedge of protection around all of us to increase our feelings of self-worth, joy, trust, and generosity in helping others succeed and thrive. In Hebrew, ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your holy name. Let us learn today. Let us imagine something different online tomorrow. And please allow us to work mightily together to solve these difficult dilemmas of our age. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Neal. Y'all can see why I invited him to speak. He's wonderful. Now we have a special message from First Lady Abbott, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but is definitely here in spirit. And I will play that now. Let's see.
Hello, I'm Cecilia Abbott. As the First Lady of Texas, one of my top priorities is working with communities and leaders to put an end to the heinous crime of human trafficking. Across Texas, thousands of people are exploited through forced labor or the sex trade, nothing more than modern-day slavery. Human traffickers hold children, women, and men against their will. They attempt to destroy their individuality and strip away their dignity. Some of these victims are sold as young girls and boys, sold as mere property. As a mother, this truly breaks my heart. In today's world, there are deceitful, hidden predators who prey upon our children, who seek to rob them of their innocence and childhood. Texas is a national leader in the fight against human trafficking. I am so proud of the critical work being done by the Child Sex Trafficking Team in the governor's office, and of all of our state agencies who are engaged in this battle each and every day, and of faith communities, advocacy organizations, and law enforcement professionals who are helping to raise awareness, promote healing, and secure justice. I am especially proud of our survivor leaders who selflessly share their stories. Together, we are recognizing and recovering victims, supporting their healing from complex trauma, holding abusers accountable and bringing justice to survivors, and moving upstream to protect children and prevent exploitation. In the face of such evil, it would be easy to lose hope, but hope always remains. Now more than ever, as our world faces such challenges, we know how much community matters. I have no doubt that by joining together, the seeds of hope that we sow will grow and flourish. Together, we can help end human trafficking, because nothing on this earth is more powerful than Texans helping Texans. As I close, I ask God to bless all who are hurting and suffering, and may He forever bless the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Okay. And I would say, I would add to that, there's nothing more powerful than us all helping each other, and the collaboration between states is truly stunning. We're just so honored to be able to put together this installment of our quarterly summits. This is a subject that is near and dear to my heart as former director of the Texas office of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and something that is increasingly distressing about what's happening to our kids. All children are vulnerable to this crime, and it's growing exponentially with children's use of social media, messaging apps, and online games. Reports of online enticement of children to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children have increased by 97.5% from 2019 to 2020. And we're so fortunate to have NCMEC, the National Center, here with us today to talk more about that. Increasingly, also, traffickers are finding, recruiting, and selling their victims online. And even with these new challenges, I am confident that together we can continue to make progress in our fight to end exploitation of children and youth. We're so grateful to have here today with us several experts who are going to be talking to you not only about the existing problem and the trends, but also about solutions you can bring home to your states. And so we'll have Homeland Security Investigations, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the McCain Institute, the Carly Ryan Foundation, and a new initiative called Not on Our Watch, Texas. And I'm very hopeful and trusting that this event will inspire you today to take action to protect our most vulnerable youth. So with that, I wanted to just give you a quick overview of what we do at the Child Sex Trafficking Team in Texas. We've been around about 5 years. For those of you who don't know, we were created by the legislature, and we really have 5 main goals, and they are to protect children and youth from online exploitation, from sexual exploitation in all of its forms, including trafficking, by preventing this from happening in the first place, and by curbing demand for commercial sex. We want to recognize our victims and recognize them as victims and survivors rather than perpetrators. And we do that by raising public awareness and also administering and implementing screening tools throughout the state. And I hear that Louisiana is also going to be bringing a screening tool, not to steal your thunder, Dr. Hunter, but we're really excited about that. We work to recover victims with empowering and protective responses rather than punitive ones. We want to support their short and long-term healing through funded grants, as well as lots of training and leveraging existing collaborations to do more. And lastly, of course, we want to bring justice by holding their perpetrators accountable, but also by bringing survivors the justice as they define it. Survivors define justice as not just putting their traffickers in jail, but by helping them achieve autonomy, empowerment, and finding that self again that they lost during their trafficking episodes. So that's really what our team does, and we're so excited to work so closely with so many other states. I also wanted to we just have to give you a brief update of our legislative successes this last regular session in Texas. It was truly unprecedented and unexpected, given all the other issues that are on the table in Texas. But we did get a lot done this session. And at the end, Governor Abbott had a ceremonial signing of 9 of those pieces of legislation. So we have a whole legislative update on our website. I encourage you to go see it. I'm just going to point out a few things. Many of these bills were geared toward prevention and recognition and recovery, which is something that we haven't done in the past. We've focused on, stiffening penalties, increasing penalties, and those sorts of things. But this time, I think our state is really finally getting to realize that we can get ahead of this. We can go upstream. So some of the things we did, we borrowed an idea from our neighbors in Louisiana. And we basically made it a crime to hire anyone under the age of 21 in sexually oriented businesses, and to admit anyone as a patron under 18 in those businesses. We know that these businesses are hotbeds of exploitation, and we believe that by protecting youth from these businesses, we are preventing exploitation and trafficking. We also are requiring human trafficking signage in all kinds of places, and including tattoo parlors. That was an idea given by our friend Larissa Plinto, who I believe is on today from Congressman McCall's office, as well as schools, hotels, all kinds of businesses, convenience stores, any business regulated by our Texas Alcoholic and Beverage Commission. And then we created a hotel training for all hotel employees to understand trafficking and to understand that they cannot be retaliated against by reporting trafficking. We also looked at reducing demand, right? That's one of the key things we have to do to curb this crime and curb the market. And so I think we're the first state, Texas likes being the first, but hopefully all of you want to be the second. We made the buying of commercial sex, the soliciting of commercial sex for the first time, doing that a state jail felony. And this has already resulted in multiple law enforcement agencies since September 1, when this law went into effect, to try to really go after the demand side of this equation. Just last week, maybe earlier this week, Tarrant County, Fort Worth announced that they had done a buyer sting, which resulted in 115 buyers being arrested. Which is huge, right? This is going to help us raise awareness that buying our people is not okay. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention we do have a new grant program that was going to be funded out of specialty license plates and donations to go to help supporting those healing programs for victims. So lots of great things going. Check out our website for more on that. And let's see if I can get to our website. Here it is. We've got a great legislative webinar by my colleague Todd Latiolis on our website. So check that out. And next, I have the extreme honor and privilege to introduce my friend who I've been working alongside for 2-3 years now, Dr. Dana Hunter. Dana is, for those of you in Louisiana know her, but for those of you who are not from Louisiana, she's a native of Baton Rouge. And she was appointed to be the executive director of the governor's office children's cabinet in the governor's office in Louisiana. And recently, on July 1st, was appointed to serve as the very new executive director of the governor's office of human trafficking prevention. She's going to share a few words about what her office has in store.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank all of you. Thank you, First Lady Edwards, for your leadership for our state, and First Lady Abbott for your leadership as well. And I will tell you that Andrea and we have worked tight at the hip over the last several years to really help bring Louisiana on the map and to bring Louisiana up to speed in our efforts to combat this crime. And we are so proud of our governor and First Lady who has just taken the reins of this issue and really has just marched across the country to say, not here in Louisiana. And so I'm so proud and grateful to God just to have a small part in this. And I'm grateful to also have the honor to lead this office. I will tell you that the Office of Human Trafficking Prevention is so critical to our state. We have a mission to promote healing, safety, and justice for all citizens of our state, not ignoring any population because trafficking can impact any population. We're extremely careful to monitor and to watch and to put in efforts and strategies for those who are most vulnerable, those in OJJ custody, foster care, those with intellectual disabilities, those in rural communities. And so we are really looking at implementation of best practices. We have meetings and consultation sessions with Texas all the time, because as First Lady Edwards said, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. As you know, here in Louisiana, sometimes our resources are skim. And so we don't believe in reinventing the wheel. And so we use every partner possible to say, hey, what works well? How can we tweak? How can we use what's working to help here in Louisiana? And so our office has a goal to implement data-driven, survivor-informed strategies. And I say that very carefully. Why? Because data is important. We don't want to just do things. We want to allow the data to drive what are the gaps, what are the soft spots, and how can we improve where we are. So we are pleased to note that our office, the new office in just such a short period of time, we are securing a contract. We found funding and we have secured a contract with Allies Against Slavery to implement a new software, a best practice technology known as Lighthouse. Lighthouse is an automated system which can collect and analyze data on human trafficking victims and survivors and those who are high risk. So we can better tell the story of what are some of the gaps, what are we seeing, what are some of the patterns. So we're so proud, and the state of Texas has this really statewide, and it's been a huge benefit to the state of Texas. So we here in Louisiana, hopefully we can say that we're the second state, but we are so proud to have this technology come to our state as we have gone over the last several years through funding from the U.S. Department of Justice. We have had funding to roll out a grant known as the Louisiana Child and Youth Trafficking Collaborative. One of the key components of that grant was to improve victim identification. We did that through a partnership with West Coast known as the See It We have trained over 200 service providers in implementing the See It, a best practice screening tool. And so with that, we are just elated that now we have a partnership with an organization who can help analyze this data. We're using the country's paradigm and model, which is known as the 4 Ps: prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnerships. And if I can add a 5th one, prayer. A 5th P would be prayer. But we are so excited to embrace this model. So in addition to the See It, in addition to data-driven, survivor-informed strategies, we are really looking forward to doing a statewide, creating and establishing a statewide care coordination model. Once survivors, victims are identified, we want to make sure that wherever they are found, wherever they are identified, that they can enter into a system or a model where they can get the services, the treatment that they need throughout, all the way to recovery. And so we're excited. We're getting the partnerships that we need with law enforcement, district attorneys, medical providers. We're working closely with our First Lady on statewide awareness. And we're just excited at what's to come here in Louisiana. And lastly, I'll say nothing about us without us. Everything we do is informed by our survivors. So thank you so very much for this time. And we look forward to partnering. If there's anything we can do to help, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. We're excited for your efforts and to see what y'all do next. I want to get started with our programming now on online safety, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Jack Station, who is Special Agent in Charge at Homeland Security Investigations. Jack, like myself, like Rabbi Blumoth, like many of us today, has both Louisiana and Texas ties. Currently, he's acting Special Agent in Charge of Homeland Security in New Orleans, which encompasses Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi in the New Orleans office. But prior to that, he served as the Deputy Director of the Joint Task Force West in San Antonio, Texas. And was that was a component of the Department of Homeland Security's Southern Border and Approaches campaign. He served in numerous field and headquarter leadership positions throughout his career, including Special Agent in Charge for U.S. and Customs Enforcement Homeland Security El Paso. And he is a member of the Senior Executive Service team with over 26 years of law enforcement, border security, emergency management, and criminal intelligence experience. He began his career as a Border Patrol agent with the Immigration and Naturalization Service in 1995. Jack, will you tell us a little bit about your perspective on this ongoing, growing crime of online exploitation, and tell us what can we do about it?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to join on today's panel. I appreciate the opportunity to shed light on the critical and relevant topic of child exploitation and human trafficking. I want to start by sharing how my agency, Homeland Security Investigations, which is also known as HSI, is combating these horrific and traumatic crimes on a global level. I hope that the information provided here encourages all of us, parents, friends, family, educators, and alike, to have a discussion and talk about internet safety. I'll start by giving a brief overview of HSI's mission and our role in investigating human trafficking and child exploitation. I'm also going to share some recent scenarios of cases and examples of trends that our agents in the field are seeing, as well as some strategies used by predators to groom children. Lastly, I'll share what HSI is doing to proactively combat crimes of exploitation. HSI is a division within Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We're also the principal investigative component of the Department of Homeland Security, and we're responsible for investigating over 400 statutes. HSI is the second largest criminal investigative agency in the United States, and we're the largest criminal investigative agency within the Department of Homeland Security. Our workforce consists of more than 10,400 employees assigned to over 250 offices across the United States and more than 80 offices around the world. We have a broad legal authority to conduct federal criminal investigations into illegal cross-border crimes, the movement of people, goods, money, technology, and other contraband throughout the United States. We utilize our authorities to investigate a wide array of transnational crime. That includes human trafficking and child exploitation crimes. One of our top priorities is to protect the public from crimes of victimization. HSI personnel from around the world work nonstop to protect children from exploitation by predators who are involved in the production, distribution, and possession of child sexual abuse material, and who travel internationally to engage in illicit sexual conduct with minors. HSI is recognized as a global leader in the fight, and we are committed to utilizing our authorities, our international footprint, and strong government and non-governmental partnerships to take an integrated victim-centered approach to identify and rescue child victims, to identify and apprehend offenders, to prevent transnational child sexual abuse, and to help to make the internet a safer place for children. HSI has created 2 centers dedicated to our global fight against the exploitation of victims by criminals and transnational criminal organizations. The Department of Homeland Security Center for Countering Human Trafficking and the Homeland Security Investigations Cybercrime Center, which is also known as C3. Excuse me. HSI's Child Exploitation Investigations focuses on 3 key areas: investigating individuals and networks who commit online criminal activities, protecting children from crimes of victimization, and third, finding predators who produce or distribute sexually explicit materials containing child victims. C3 uses the latest technology to collect evidence and track the activities of individuals and organized groups who sexually exploit children using the dark web and internet-based platforms. Similar to HSI's child exploitation mission, the agency's human trafficking investigative mission is twofold. We proactively identify, disrupt, and dismantle cross-border human trafficking organizations and minimize the risk they pose to national security and public safety. We employ a victim-centered approach whereby equal value is placed on the identification, rescue, and stabilization of victims, as well as on the deterrence, investigation, and the prosecution of traffickers. We're excited because in September of 2020, we officially established the Center for Countering Human Trafficking in Washington, D.C. It is staffed with personnel from 16 Department of Homeland Security components and headquarters offices, including agents, victim support specialists, intelligence research specialists, and other experts focused on dismantling and disrupting human trafficking organizations and providing support and protection to their victims. Offenders involved specifically in the online sexual exploitation of children have long been early adopters in new technology that help to evade detection and current availability of software, accessibility of interactive platforms, and the dark web is making it easier than ever for predators to create and access existing material and directly reaching out to our children. These technologies include applications that provide encryption to hide files and communications, as well as software and related infrastructure that offers concealment. While the dark web's technical composition continues to be a challenge for law enforcement, we pursue these crimes using our investigative, enforcement experience, and expertise to infiltrate, identify, and arrest those utilizing the dark web for their illicit activities. An example of a case that we have conducted, it was actually out of our Portland, Maine office, was a international investigation, worked with the government of the Philippines. And in that investigation, you had traffickers that were sexually exploiting children through live stream. So individuals would go onto the site and watch the exploitation live. Working with the government of the Philippines, we were able to identify the network, identify the perpetrators, and it actually resulted in the prosecution of the traffickers in the Philippines for violations of human trafficking under Philippine law, which shows the connection between cyber online exploitation and human trafficking. Some of the current trends we're seeing in the field is the use of US-based or is the use of non-US based apps and sextortion. A recent case our agents dealt with involved a 13-year-old boy sending nude photos of himself through Snapchat to whom he thought was a girl his age, when in fact it was a grown man. That, of course, led to the grown man trying to get more information, more photographs out of the young boy before he came forward and he told his parents of what had happened. A similar sextortion investigation led our agents to a female victim who was coerced not only in sending increasingly graphic and explicit material, but also money and a video of the victim harming herself before she found the courage to tell her family what was going on and what had happened while she was online. The important thing to note here is that these sextortion crimes can happen to any child who is active online and often occur over time. Predators will operate on the open internet in any application or gaming platform that has messaging capability and is susceptible to exploitation attempts. A predator will groom his victim or her victim over time, offering compliments on the victim's personality and physical appearance, and will befriend them into sharing personal details and eventually explicit material. The dark web is full of manuals teaching predators how to groom children for exploitation. These sextortion crimes cause financial and emotional distress. They leave long-lasting trauma and have in some cases led to suicide. I have seen predators using grooming techniques in both human trafficking and child exploitation for years. I've been working human trafficking cases for almost 20 years, formerly with the Immigration Naturalization Service, and then moving on to Immigration Customs Enforcement and Homeland Security investigations. An example of one of the cases I had years ago, actually in Dallas, Texas, was Korean females being groomed and coerced to come into the United States, being told they were going to come in, receive visas, and they'd be working in restaurants and working in stores, when in fact they were being brought in and placed into massage parlors and were victims of sex trafficking. Through those investigations, just like with some of the child exploitations, they were groomed in Korea. They were made promises. They thought they had a friend and someone who was looking out for the best interests, only in turn to become a victim of sex trafficking. HSI's approach is that outreach and prevention is the best way to proactively combat these horrific crimes. Prevention is the best way to protect our children, preventing explicit material from being created and shared and preventing long-lasting trauma from occurring. In an effort to provide timely information about internet safety to parents and children, we have partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's NetSmarts and the Internet Crimes Against Children ICAC task forces to develop Project iGuardian, which is on the next slide. The project is an outreach effort to communicate the dangers of web-based environments, how to help kids stay safe online, how to report the abuse and suspicious activity, particularly why kids are spending more time online during the COVID-19 pandemic and over school breaks. In addition, the iGuardian team helps children stay safe online by providing safety tips, a number to call, and a website with links to more information and resources. The website's actually www.ice.gov, iGuardian. HSI believes that providing children, teens, and parents and teachers with information regarding the dangers of online environments and how to stay safe online can help prevent many instances of child exploitation and potentially human trafficking. In addition to education and outreach, HSI encourages everyone to look within their communities to continue protecting children and preventing exploitation crimes. Work with your elected officials to voice your concerns about online regulation and legal limitations that may expose children to online predators and traffickers. HSI has been extremely successful with providing technical assistance to U.S. representatives and senators who work to pass legislation designed to combat global child exploitation and trafficking, including the passage of the 2016 International Megan's Law. The International Megan's Law formally established HSI's Angel Watch Center, managed by the HSI Child Exploitation Investigations Unit at C3, as a joint effort with the United States Customs and Border Protection and the United States Marshal Service in identifying sexual predators traveling overseas, registered sex offenders to be exact. So with these efforts and looking at, how can we combat this, working with our, elected officials, working with our non-governmental organizations, producing programs like iGuardian that can be utilized with schools to inform and educate not only children, but educators and parents and family members on internet safety. We have gone a long way in trying to combat child exploitation, and the future is going to be education, in my opinion, because we are a law enforcement agency. HSI is a law enforcement agency, and we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this. We are going to have to educate and make people aware of the dangers that are online and the dangers that exist every day, where individuals are grooming and trying to recruit children, not only for child exploitation, but potential human trafficking. In closing, I want to thank you for your time and attention today. And I hopefully gave you an informative overview of not only HSI's efforts to find and rescue child exploitation and human trafficking victims, but as well as to prevent and deter future victimization. I ask that you share how to report any suspicious activity, including instances of child exploitation or human trafficking, through HSI or your local police department. Tips can be submitted to HSI online at www.ice.gov tip line, or by phone at 866-DHS-2-ICE. Reports can also be filed with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, or online at reportcybertip.org. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for having me and allowing me to be part of this summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Special Agent Station. Now I'd like to introduce Belinda Swan from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. She is the outreach manager there in Austin, Texas, at the Texas Regional Office. And she focuses her efforts on delivering NCMEC's child safety programming and on implementing the Community Education Partner Program, which you should learn more about today. She is passionate about bringing communities together to recognize, address, and prevent internet safety issues affecting children, such as online exploitation and solicitation. She brings over 20 years of experience to NCMEC, including her work with the Texas Attorney General's Office Law Enforcement Division and the Council on At-Risk Youth. She received a BA in Government and Mexican American Studies from the University of Texas at Austin, and will graduate this December with a master's degree in Public Affairs from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's such an honor to be here today. NCMEC is absolutely just so excited to be able to share some of this information with you today. Next slide, please. I am located in Austin, Texas, but we do have a national reach. So if there's anything that you see in today's presentation that you would like more information about, if you'd like to contact me directly to learn more about any of the topics discussed, my contact information will be made available to you, and it's also included at the end of this presentation. So before we dive into the data, I just want to very quickly talk to you about our organization. We were founded in 1984, in part by John and Rabbi Walsh, who you may be familiar with, because of a lot of the work that they do in this space globally, quite frankly. But it is from their own personal experience that we were founded. Their son, Adam, was tragically abducted and murdered when he was 6 years old. So out of that compassion and empathy for other families experiencing similar tragedies is how NCMEC was founded. And our mission, as you can see, is three-pronged. It is to find missing children, reduce child sexual exploitation, and to prevent future victimization. Hope is why we're here, and that seems to be the theme throughout today's presentation, and that makes me so happy. Next slide, please. I do want to share that some of the things I will talk about today may be a little, well, they're uncomfortable, they're unsettling. So do take a deep breath and know that at the other side of processing this information is understanding and being able to tackle these issues together. So let's talk a little bit about child sexual exploitation, what that means at this center. Next slide, please. So for our purposes, as you've heard in the previous presentation and throughout, we do receive cyber tips via the cyber tip line, and we also receive reports via 1-800 The Lost. And so we have analyzed that information or those reports over periods of time, and consistently and most recently, we see these types of sexual exploitation consistently, with child sexual abuse materials being the most reported incident at the National Center. Next would be online enticement, and then trafficking and sex tourism, and on, as you can see on the list. But again, by and large, the most reported incident is child sexual abuse material. But there are several nexuses, if you will, or points of intersection with reports of CSAM and other types of crime, as you will learn today. Next slide, please. So again, I'm going to echo some things that you've heard, but at the National Center, last year was a historic one with regard to reports. In fact, we saw a 28% increase in overall reports to the cyber tip line, but when we take a deeper look at that data, we saw an almost 100% increase in online enticement reports. That's very troubling. Next slide, please. And indicates several things. For one, we recognize that children certainly were at home more often than usual last year at the height of the various pandemic shutdowns or lockdowns. But we also recognize that a lot of the things that we realized we could do online during the height of the lockdowns, virtually, we're still doing, right? And we recognize that our children are still socializing online now more than ever, certainly more than my generation, for instance. And we need to recognize that to better inform our strategies to help prevent these types of crimes. So let's discuss online enticement. Again, you can see the definition, and then here are some of the key facts that we have seen consistently. And again, this is based solely on the reports that we receive at the National Center. We see some commonalities across these reports. Children of all ages can be a victim of online enticement. I'd like to echo what you heard in the previous presentation, all ages. And let's think about that. What does that mean, right? Well, what that means is, and we'll discuss as we do a deeper dive into the data, but we also have to think about the fact that our children have access to the internet via a variety of different mechanisms, right? Whether it's a gaming platform or a cell phone or a tablet, our children have access at a much younger age too, right? So that's a part of this as well. Most children do not know the person they are communicating with online. Most child victims, and again, based on the data we see at the center, are female. Online enticement, this is so important as we think about ways we can work together to prevent and combat these issues. Most or online enticement can occur on various platforms, right? We get a lot of the same questions at the center. Well, which platform or which social media app should I just flat out ban in my home? What should I tell my kids that they can't do? And the short answer is there isn't any one bad app per se. We certainly have the data that indicates that these types of cases are reported on all social media platforms and various messaging apps, gaming platforms. So you can see the theme here, right? The commonality is access, right? Most offenders are male per our reports and have been reported to vary widely in age. So two key things. All of this is key information, but two key things to keep in mind as we start to consider how we approach preventing these type of instances from happening, right? Children of all ages, and most offenders have been reported to vary widely in age. So we'll start to make some connections with prevention strategies in a second. So, and again, I did mention that some of this is very unsettling, but again, we have to understand the issue so that we can tackle it. So based on our data, I can share that the overall offender goals, so what the intent is behind the solicitation, based on our reports, 60% are for content, right? So the offender is not necessarily interested in engaging in sexual activity with the child, but rather is interested in gaining photos and videos. And as you heard, there's often a connection to sextortion. So once this offender has received the content, they will start to sextort the child to create more content. And I'll share an example of what that looks like in a second. So next we see 32%, can you go back? Thank you, is for actual sexual contact with the child. A little over almost 8% is to engage in explicit conversation or role play. So the intent of these offenders is not necessarily physical contact, but conversation instead. And then we do see several reports where the goal is financial. And again, another sextortion nexus where, you know, I will release all of these photos, I will release all of these videos to everyone that you know, if you don't give me X amount of dollars, right? So we certainly see those types again. So again, I hope that you're recognizing a lot of the different ways that online enticement and extortion can turn into other types of crimes as well. Next slide, please. So you've heard us talk about the cyber tip line some today, and I just wanted to briefly talk to you about what that means and how the cyber tip line works. So when you call 1-800-THE-LOST or visit cybertipline.org, it triggers several things. First and foremost, our amazing and very brave and committed, dedicated analysts are going to take the information provided by that report and look to see first and foremost if a child is in clear and present danger, right? And they're going to prioritize these reports, analyze, and try to, at the center, one of the benefits of reporting is that we just have so many different ways to process data. We have access to databases. We can run them against other reports and look for commonalities and information to help identify the victim and the perpetrator. So once we package and prioritize that information, we send it to the appropriate law enforcement jurisdiction, who in turn will start their own investigation. Another important thing that I want for you to consider when reporting to the National Center is that we also provide mental health resources. In the area, we have partnerships with mental health providers throughout the country to provide either free or low cost services wherever you are, wherever your survivor is. And we also have a peer network of folks who give of themselves, who have survived some horrible things to provide support to those who are going through it now. So again, just another thing to consider when reporting to the National Center. Next slide, please. So let's talk about that data. And again, it's a little unsettling, but it's going to help us to understand just how important our prevention strategies are and how we should target them. So in 2020, the cyber tip line received 21.7 million reports. That's just 1 year. Of those total reports, there were 65.4 million files. And when we look at what type of files, we're looking at just over 33 million images and 31.7 million videos, in addition to other kinds of files. I know that's difficult to wrap your mind around, but behind every one of these reports is a child that needs our help. Next slide, please. So when we consider the identity of these children based on our statistical analysis, 71% of the victims identified are female, 29% are male. And again, I know this can be unsettling, but the age of the victim is also broken down for you here. These are pubescent children, mostly prepubescent, and unfortunately infants and toddlers are also victimized in this way. So this is what we mean when we say that this is a crime that affects children of all ages, right? Including infants and toddlers. And so again, although this is extremely uncomfortable, the takeaway here that I hope that you will leave with is that we've got to reach our children with information and prevention strategies at a younger age, right? It's never too early or too late to have these conversations and to talk about these difficult topics and internet safety specifically, but we must recognize that these crimes absolutely affect our youngest children and need our intervention at a younger and younger age. Next slide, please. So this slide, again, is to help us kind of understand some of the trends we're seeing at the center, and also, especially for my child serving professionals in the audience, I bet you recognize something that's very similar to the abuse that other kinds of child abuse that we see in person, right? So 50% of the victims reported to the center had their perpetrators had direct access to that child, right? So it's somebody that they knew, and you can see the breakdown there for you. And then the other categories that we recognize that are continuing to increase are online enticement, self-production, which we'll discuss. And of course, you see all of the other categories. But what's important here to recognize, and I'll say it again, is that this type of activity is absolutely child abuse, right? This is child sexual abuse, and it must be thought of that way so that we can tackle it in the way that we do various other types of physical and sexual abuse of a child. So again, consider that 50% of these perpetrators had direct access to the child. Next slide, please. So again, some of the trends that we're seeing at the center, certainly seeing an uptick in sexting, right? And in instances where that turns into sextortion, that photo was intended for one person perhaps, and was shared without consent, online enticement, and live streaming, right? So children, we're seeing a huge uptick in youth-produced content in children of all ages. Many times it's not intended to be sexual in nature, but for a predator who's looking for that kind of content, it is sexual in nature, right? So again, with more access at a younger age and children socializing and engaging more so online than ever before, we are absolutely seeing an increase in huge numbers in these, especially these types of activity, right? So sexting, online enticement, sextortion, and live streaming are on the rise. Next slide, please. So here's an example of how our processes work. So you can see on the slide here, we received a call, or a tip, I should say, a report from a concerned father who found hundreds of images and videos of his then 14 or 15-year-old daughter. He reported to the National Center. We did all of the pertinent intake. We offered mental health and peer support, processed it, looked for any information that would identify the suspect, realized that he was likely living in Alabama based on our data search. Once we were able to put that information together, we shared it with 2 different law enforcement agencies, and you can see just how quickly this happened. Law enforcement was able to establish that this person was victimizing 16 total young girls across the country. So again, it took one father having the insight that something was going on with his child, right? He recognized that something's going on with his child, took a look at the phone, heartbroken, found these devastating images and videos, but also recognized, I'll share with you, that his daughter was being sextorted as well, right? So she thought she was communicating with a particular individual. And then once these images and videos were shared, the situation flipped, right? Now he was starting to post these images and videos on Reddit and was threatening her, and forcing her to create more. He was going to continue to distribute these photos and videos. In fact, I believe he told her, if you're not going to do this anymore, you need to find somebody else to replace you, or I'm going to continue to share these photos and videos right across the world. So again, it took that concerned parent making that first step, and law enforcement was able to take it to the other end, get justice for this child, right? So again, this is a community approach that it requires all of us to know what to look for, what conversations to have with our children, and working together to bring these perpetrators to justice and to get our children the assistance that they need. Next slide, please. So again, I want to reiterate, we've received reports of online enticement of children on almost every single digital platform. There is no one good or safe or one entirely bad platform. What it boils down to, next slide, please, is our prevention in preventing future victimization via our conversations, right? What can we do together to help to prevent this from happening again? The top threat is, of course, as we've discussed throughout today's presentations, access. Access, access, access. We've got to think about it that way, right? We have to remove that blind spot and recognize that our children, pandemic or not, are socializing online, they're gaming, they're chatting throughout the day on their cell phones. And we've got to have these conversations with them, as we do when we teach them to look both ways before they cross the street, to buckle up before they put the car and drive, all of these kinds of stranger danger things that some of you that may have grown up in the 80s like me, remember, we have to have these same kinds of conversations about their conduct online as well, right? So next slide, please. And some of the ways that we do that at NCMEC, and thank you so much, Special Agent Station, for sharing that your agency also uses NetSmarts. All of our resources are free and available online. You can take a picture here to learn more of the QR code, I should say. We certainly have videos, tip sheets, games, so many different ways to communicate. We understand that these topics are difficult, and so we try to lessen that burden by giving you some guidance on how to have some of these conversations with your children, your students, and your clients. Next slide, please. Again, more examples of different tip sheets. I wanted to bring attention especially to our helpful information about how to talk to children about whom is a trusted adult in their life, and for adults, how we can be a trusted adult, right? A lot is writing on how we respond to a child who makes that initial outcry, right? And so we offer some guidance on that topic as well. Next slide, please. More information for you. And then lastly, yeah, you can keep on going. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yes, I hope that by sharing this example with you and talking about some of the other things, services and resources that we provide, we absolutely provide technical assistance. So if you have a client or are working a case right now with a victim who has images that are circulating online now, we can work with them to try to remove them. We also, as I mentioned, provide emotional support. We also provide assistance in locating an attorney to guide through some of these cases. There are only a few attorneys nationwide that work specifically with these kinds of cases. I say a few, it's more than that, but we have working relationships with them and are more than happy to connect you with them as well to receive some legal guidance there. And again, we work with a variety of NDTs, law enforcement agencies, educators, you name it. We are here to provide our resources anytime that you need us, and we hope that you will consider doing just that. Next slide, please. Lastly, I hope you'll take us up on some of our resources. Some of them are on demand and available for you from the comfort of your own home via Parent, our NCMEC Connect, I should say. We also have a Parent Connect series that's available online as well, with bite-sized, little Q&A sessions with experts in the field from across the country to talk about these issues. Those videos are available today. But these are some of the topics that you can learn about by visiting our website, and certainly you can get there via the QR code. I just want to thank everyone again for having us. Next slide, please. And especially the governor's office for continuing to be a steadfast supporter of the work that we do. We are absolutely honored to be here. I know I spoke really quickly and shared a lot of information in a short amount of time. So please do reach out with any questions or concerns. I'm happy to chat with you offline anytime. Thank you so much.
Belinda, that was great. You gave us a ton of information in a short amount of time. I'm going to skip over to slide 6, which is what Kristen told me to do. Is this it, Kristen?
Next one. You can go a few more.
Yes.
There you go. You're good.
Okay, let me introduce to y'all a friend of mine, Kristen Abrams, who is the Senior Director of Combating Human Trafficking at the McCain Institute. In this capacity, she provides strategic leadership and operational management for the Institute's program to combat all forms of trafficking. She is truly an expert at this subject, and we were so delighted that she and Kelsey, her colleague, came up with this campaign called Real Friends Don't, for a variety of reasons, and I'll let her tell you that. But we're just delighted she's here. We are really partnering with the McCain Institute to spread the messages of this campaign throughout the state of Texas, not only on social media, but we're doing a ton of press conferences, and our friends at Outdoor Advertising Association of Texas have put billboards in 70 markets. We believe in this campaign. We believe it's making a difference, and we're delighted that you're partnering with us, Kristen, to help us to maybe get other states on board. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. And thank you, Andrea. And special thanks to First Lady Edwards and First Lady Abbott for convening us and being the inspiration for this convening today. We are so delighted to be working in the state of Texas and with Andrea and Todd and your amazing team there. So the reason I asked Andrea to skip over my first several slides was, first, I want to keep this short. And the other reason is I start with all of the facts that you just heard. So Belinda gave you the sharp increase that we've seen in the number of online enticements and the amount of time kids are spending online. I think something that I always underline is that the age of children and their social media usage has really gone down. As a parent, I've seen that. When the pandemic started, I had a kindergartner and a third grader, and my kindergartner is now fully fluent in navigating the internet because she had to learn to be able to go to school. And so we unfortunately can't put those genies back in the bottle. And so we knew we needed to do something. I will be very clear about what we are and what we are not. We are not NCMEC. We're not the cyber tip line. We're not the NetSmarts campaign. We're not law enforcement. What we are is a campaign to try and do two things. And Andrea, you can go to the next slide. We are trying to give information to parents and caregivers to get them to be comfortable to have the conversation with the young people in their lives about online safety. So I'll share a little bit more about what that will mean. And then we talk directly to young people, and we try to create safe, open spaces where young people can come together to talk about online safety, what it means to have healthy online relationships, and how to educate themselves to be empowered in navigating the internet. You can next slide. So we developed this campaign with our partner at the PR firm Ketchum. It's called Real Friends Don't. The real is a mnemonic, of course, and I'm going to make sure that I get it exactly right because sometimes I say the wrong things. The R stands for raise the topic. So conversation starters on our website, realfriendsdon't.org. We have like the words you as a parent or caregiver could use to start that conversation with a young person. Educate yourself as a parent and caregiver on the platforms that your kids are using. Belinda's right. It's not just one social media platform. It's gaming platforms. It's a whole range of different websites and platforms. You got to know how to use them. We have a how-to guide of how to set parental controls and how to use some of these games and social media platforms that your kids are using. You need to act if something makes you or your child uncomfortable. That's when NCMEC comes in. We point you in the direction of the cyber tip line, and NCMEC has been a great partner to us as we've developed the campaign. And then the L is just learn more. On our website, again, we have a resources section that gives you all sorts of great information about this topic. Go ahead and advance. So the first part of our campaign was a social media campaign. So using influencers, you can see some of the Instagram posts that started rolling out late last year. We were so excited that we had over 1 million, almost 2 million impressions. And I know now we're over that. This piece of the campaign will continue. We continue to use a small group of influencers to try to reach parents and caregivers and get them the information that they need. Our next influencer campaign, and please follow along, share it, like it, do whatever you need to do, is next week, the 18th through the 22nd, in recognition of Digital Citizenship Week. This week is going to explore the impact that digital lives have on social and emotional well-being, and this piece of it will still be focused on parents and caregivers. Next. Oh, I didn't know there was movement in there. Keep going. Yeah. We are constantly trying to evaluate the work that we're doing to see if we're reaching our target audience. And what we heard after we rolled out our first social media campaign, again, directed at parents and caregivers, were that you may not be reaching all parents and caregivers, particularly in African-American and Latinx households. Some parents are not actively using social media, and so they may not be seeing your posts. You have to get your message into them in another way. And so we were so excited. I think Andrea and I were brainstorming, and the Outdoor Advertising Association of Texas said, well, what if we donated some billboard space? Would you be able to use your branding and your messaging and get it up on these billboards, direct people to your website where they can find more information? We were like, yes. So we developed billboards, different sizes in Spanish and English. They're in thousands of boards throughout the state of Texas. It's ready to go. We have all the files. We will give them to you. We will give them to whoever. We would love to see this in other states coming next to Arizona, but wherever you have somewhere we could get this message up, again, Spanish and English. And Andrea, if you go to the next one, I think we've got a shot of a Spanish billboard here. We would love to share that with you. I'll tell you, everything we're doing is open source. We give it all away. We want everyone to use it. So if there's anything here that resonates, please reach out to me. Andrea, if you go to the next slide, it probably is our video clip, which we're not going to play in the interest of time, but it's a 45-second clip. You can grab it from YouTube. You can grab it from our website, and it talks about Real Friends Don't, what real friends do, what real friends don't, how to start those conversations with kids. So the most exciting new piece of our campaign is around street art. So as we started to add in the component of talking directly to young people, we were trying to figure out, okay, if we don't necessarily feel like we are well equipped to do this through TikTok, which I will own, I am not well equipped to do this through TikTok. How else can we reach young people, and how can we create this space? And we got to know the Chicago Public Arts Group, who said, what about doing some street art? Would you be open for creating a mural? We'll help you find the space. It's on a side of a building. We're going to bring high school students together. We're going to talk about things like online safety, other difficult topics. We're going to get their ideas. And then we have commissioned 2 street artists to design a mural. These photos that you see here are from the workshop that we had just a couple of weeks ago. We're waiting on the final design. The mural should be unveiled in November. And we would love to do this in other cities as well. It really is creating that space to have these conversations, and it brings the community together in a way that I think in an online environment really can't do. So the last 2 pieces I will share with you to inform all of our work. We're creating a Youth Ambassadors Council. We are still accepting applications. So if you know a young person, a high school student who would be interested in helping to advise us on social media, gaming platforms, the right language to use, coming up with new ideas, send them my way. This will roll out in early 2022. And then last but not least is our communications toolkit. So if there are pieces of this that you'd like to bring into your own community, feel free to do that. If you want a how-to guide on how to do it, there's a digital toolkit on our website. You'll see the resources for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And then we will have a community toolkit that will include the billboard, social media, and the murals that should be ready in the next month. So I will finish there with one more slide, just a thank you to all of our partners. So many of them are in the state of Texas, but this list is growing by the day. We would love to partner with everyone on this call. So please get in touch if we can be helpful to you, help get these conversations going to help keep kids safe online. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Kristen. And just to put it out there that one of the billboard companies, Lamar Advertising, has a huge footprint in other southern states, and they have been a great partner. So we could absolutely make this happen in your state. Okay, now I've got to introduce a new friend of mine, a very important friend of mine, and kind of the last speaker for today. And I'm going to do it by playing a video that's going to tell you her and her daughter's story. If I can get it to work.
Do a big funny face for me. That's it.
It was 2006 and
Oh, sorry.
Carly was doing well at school, was close to her mum, and had just fallen in love with a boy she met online.
She was quite giddy, as a normal teenager would be. She said, I think this boy really likes me, Mum. I really like him.
But the person on the other end wasn't the young musician from Melbourne he claimed to be.
The real person was Gary Francis Newman. a 50-year-old pedophile and predator who was operating over 200 fake profiles online to lure young girls. Over 18 months, Newman and his son worked together to gain Carly's trust, eventually convincing her to meet them an hour away from her home in Adelaide. Well, apparently they tried to rape her and she resisted. So there were signs of resistance at the crime scene, and then proceeded to bash her and murder her. Do you remember the last time you spoke to Carly? She was leaving on that day to go and meet her friends, as I thought, and she did her hair and she put on a pretty dress. She looked gorgeous. I think we had about 4 hugs at the door. And the last thing I said to her was, "I love you, darling, be safe." And she said, "Love you," and just skipped off the veranda, so carefree and happy. And I could have never have imagined that would be the last time I would see my daughter alive.
Carly Ryan was the first girl to be murdered by an online predator anywhere in the world.
I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like to identify your child's body. The worst experience of my life, and to see what they did to her physically and to see the trauma in her body was something that will stay with me forever.
Not all online predators are so brazen as to meet their victims in person. Many use the anonymity of the internet to acquire explicit material from children, either for their own gratification or to on-sell online to other pedophiles. Peter's 13-year-old son also came under the control of a pedophile online. Blackmailed into sending increasingly explicit photos and videos, told if he didn't, everything would be forwarded to his school and friends.
The online predator sent a photo of a girl's breasts and then asked to exchange with my son. So he only pretended to be the 16-year-old girl for around 5 minutes. After that 5 minutes, he then had material from my son, which he could then use to extort my son.
After a month, Peter's son broke down and told his father what was happening. Surprisingly, Peter didn't block the predator.
I have a background in internet security, fortunately, and I took the time to collect all the evidence.
Evidence that led to the arrest and conviction of 24-year-old Sydney man Curtis Whaley. In court, he admitted to collecting hundreds of videos and images from 49 victims under the age of 15, some as young as 8.
We need to myth bust that it is the old man in the trench coat in the corner online, because that's just not true.
In February 2020, the AFP and its Centre for Countering Child Exploitation launched Operation Arcstone, a large-scale investigation into pedophile networks that led to the arrest of more than 20 offenders on more than 1,000 charges. Use it too.
Some of the cases have been extremely heinous, and one thing that I would say is you never forget the first time you have to look at either an image or a video of a young child or toddler being sexually abused and hearing their cries. To me, as a police officer and a mum, it doesn't get any worse than that.
Sonia Ryan spends her life campaigning for legislative change.
Have open, honest communication with your kids. Make sure they know there is nothing that is so bad that they cannot come to you about it.
2017 saw a huge win for Sonia when Carly's Law was introduced, making it illegal for any adult who communicates with a child to lie about their age or identity and meet or arrange to meet with a child, the first law of its kind anywhere in the world.
I mean, losing my daughter was by far the worst thing that has ever happened to me. And it gives me a great sense of honour to be able to do this on her behalf in her name. Gosh, I just think of her. Every single time I get a call from law enforcement or an email saying we have rescued a child using Carly's law.
But the fight is far from over for Sonia. Now she wants a crackdown on social media platforms.
To be quite frank, enough is enough. It's time for them to absolutely step up and address this. I mean, it is their duty to look after their young users on their platforms.
Why do you think they don't have a conscience, these social media giants?
I believe that their focus is profit and privacy. But the reality is, if they wanted to eradicate child exploitation off their platforms, they could do it overnight.
Well, for the kids watching, if you find yourself in need of support, you can call the Kids Helpline on 1-800.
So without further ado, I want to introduce Miss Sonia Ryan, who is a new resident of Texas, United States of America. And we're so glad you're here, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you to everybody attending today. I feel very grateful for being able to be here in Texas and to be able to bring my daughter's legacy global. The Carly Ryan Foundation was established, not long after I lost my daughter, when I fell into that deep grief, that groundless grief. I really had the clarity to see the gaps in legislation and the gaps in education at the time, and wanted to make sure that I could do everything in my power to make sure that what happened to Carly didn't happen to another innocent child in the future. And so I incorporated her legacy, the Carly Ryan Foundation. Next slide, please, Andrea. Really, this is a legacy of love. This represents a love connection between myself and my daughter. And for me, the possibilities are limitless. This is a global pandemic, and I really feel that it's incredibly important for us all to work together to put an end to this type of exploitation online. These are just some of our services, very harm prevention focused. Next slide, thank you. Our accreditations as an organisation, I do a lot of work with federal government in Australia, and I am an ambassador for the Australian Federal Police. A lot of the knowledge and experience that I've gained over the last decade, I'm now bringing across to the US to give my time to the citizens here. As I said, this is a borderless crime. This is a global pandemic in itself, and it's going to take a global community to tackle this kind of exploitation. Next. So this is Carly's law. Just to give you a very quick overview of what it looks like. It is preventative legislation rather than reactive legislation. An analogy I like to use is, what is the point in pulling our kids out of the river when we should be grabbing their hand before they fall in? So we want to make sure that we're giving law enforcement the ability to be able to go and rescue a child before they're harmed rather than after harm's happened. The UN is supporting me to try and get this law into the criminal codes of as many countries as possible. Next. We also have a Project Connect program that I will be bringing here to the States called Project Connect, online safety and healthy relationship education. This is all about creating emotional intelligence for our kids, resilience building, critical thinking skills, so that they can navigate the online space safer and they know where to report. We also provide resources for parents in the community. And these have information for parents to get their heads around essentially what their kids are doing online. Next. Now, I'm very, very excited to announce the launch of Not On Our Watch, Texas, an initiative of the foundation. Not On Our Watch was spearheaded by Lisa Beth Thomas, founding president of Texas Women in Business. And I'm delighted to introduce Lisa to speak further on Not On Our Watch. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. I am so excited to share this with you all. Not On Our Watch, Texas is a grassroots movement that inspires and empowers women across the state to become leaders in their own communities against child sexual abuse and exploitation. We are so thrilled about this because we're first and foremost bringing awareness to many people that don't even realize it's a big issue, and then education, resources, and support. But again, within their communities. So how are we doing this? We are firing up the women of Texas. And they are saying, no, not on our watch. It's really very powerful. We're in the process of finalizing our strategy, our plan. We had to tweak it a little bit due to COVID, but the outreach, the buy-in, the everything that women are saying across the state already is a resounding yes. Not on our watch. How can we be involved? And so if you want some more information, or not more information, if you would like some information on Not on Our Watch Texas and what we're doing, please email me. It's LB, as in Lisa Beth, LB at notonourwatchtx.com. I'll put it in chat. And I know we're going quick. The First Lady's up. Sonia, thank you so much. And we're excited to be a part and be an initiative of the Carly Law and Carly Foundation.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. I know we have limited time, but this is my daughter, Carly. The legacy of love, be part of our love movement. This is a global pandemic. We must come together and fight this. A disconnected approach is simply not working. It's not going to be easy, but it's not impossible. It's going to take the will and the bravery of every single one of us to face this head on. Stand with me, stand with my daughter, and let us be the light for all the children that are yet to be identified and rescued. Our children are literally our future and deserve a life free from exploitation. This is our website. Have a look. These are my contact details. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm staying right here. And I really look forward to continuing working with you, Andrea, with you, Lisa, and seeing what we can do to help prevent this type of suffering. Thank you.
And turn it back over to First Lady Donna Edwards.
Thank you so very much. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Andrea, for assembling this fabulous panel. I'm just always amazed at the high level of work that's being done across our country, and so many great speakers with such important content today. I can't say enough about what I've learned. I've wrote tons of notes, and I hope that you all did too. If we continue to collaborate, we move closer to eradicating this horrible crime, and we welcome participation from all other states. If your state is interested in sharing your work, please contact us. Delary Rice, her contact information is on the chat. We would love to engage with other states as that only increases everyone's knowledge and skills. My team has this down to a science, and I promise it's not that much work on our end, just to pull everybody together. Andrea, once again, wonderful group of speakers today. And I thank everyone. We've had a great attendance today. I thank everyone for attending. If you could fill out the survey that is in the link in the chat, LFF will post the resources from this summit on our website, LouisianaFirstFoundation.com, under our Human Trafficking tab. We also have some contact information from my office and Andrea Sparks in the chat as well. And the speakers, once again, contact them. All of their information is also going to be listed. Powerful information we should all take away today. And look up for our following email that will come and contain even more information. So thank you all for speeding up today. I hated that we have to push everybody through, but we really wanted to have a lot of people join us today and really be respectful of their time. And we are so grateful for all the information. So thank you again for your time and for this team, and to everybody. God bless, and thank you for your hard work each and every day. And for the First Ladies and for the First Lady of Texas and those other First Ladies and spouses and offices on, thank you again for your attendance. It's only through spreading the word. And like Sonia just mentioned, it is a global issue, and bringing all of us together and collaborating across Zoom and these virtual platforms is really necessary. So God bless you all. Thanks so much.